part of the reason there is I think AI and surprise don't go together. Our goal is not to have shock updates to the world. And this was so shocking to me. I was so caught off guard.
So when is GPT-5 coming out again? Blink twice if it's this year. Let me ask you about Ilya. Is he being held hostage in a secret nuclear facility? What's this mysterious Q-Star project? Is it also in the same nuclear facility?
There is no nuclear facility.
That's what a person in a nuclear facility always says.
I would love to have a secret nuclear facility.
I've seen journalists half-assedly just using GPT-4. It's
of the long list of things I'd like to dunk on journalists for, this is not my top criticism of them.
Does this increase your belief, if you ever had one, that we live in a simulation? Maybe a simulated world generated by an AI system?
Yes, somewhat.
Are you afraid of losing control of the AGI itself? There's a lot of people who worried about existential risk, not because of state actors, not because of security concerns, but because of the AI itself.
That is not my top worry.
So Sam Altman goes on the Lex Fridman Podcast to talk about OpenAI, GPT-5, Sora, that whole board saga that they went through back in November, Elon Musk, Ilya, the power struggle, AGI. I want to know, where can I get this cup? I would love to have an OpenAI cup. But I pulled out a few interesting things that were especially meaningful to me that I kind of wanted to point out and talk about. So I'll leave a link to the full podcast in the show notes. I encourage everybody to see it. There's a lot to be said for these long format interviews. This one is almost 2 hours long. So it really shows you kind of the deeper side of Sam Altman, kind of how he thinks about stuff. It's easy to play a role in quick sound bites, in quick 5-second appearances in various TikTok videos. It's much harder to act out some role in a 2-hour-long podcast where you're trying to honestly answer questions, going deep into it. It really gives you a glimpse into who these people are. So for anybody that's really interested in AI, and the people that are building it, the people that are kind of bringing AGI into the world, I think this is a good podcast to look at to really maybe get a glimpse into who Sam Altman is. I'll give you my thoughts at the end, but let's start with this. So first of all, OpenAI and Elon Musk. So one interesting thing is I think at some point Sam said that he recently had a dinner where Ilya was at the dinner kind of playing around with a puppy or whatever. So it sounds like they're still talking. Ilya's not locked up in a basement somewhere.
Let me ask you about Ilya. Is he being held hostage in a secret nuclear facility?
I love Ilya. I have tremendous respect for Ilya. I don't have anything I can say about his plans right now. That's a question for him. But I really hope we work together for, certainly the rest of my career. He's a little bit younger than me. Maybe he works a little bit longer.
What did Ilya see?
Ilya has not seen AGI. None of us have seen AGI. We've not built AGI. I do think one of the many things that I really love about Ilya is he takes AGI and the safety concerns, broadly speaking, including things like the impact this is going to have on society, very seriously. I was at a dinner party with him recently and he was playing with a puppy and he was in a very silly mood, very endearing. And I was thinking oh man, this is not the side of the Ilya that the world sees the most.
And specifically, they talk about this where there's this letter that they published where Elon says the only way for OpenAI to go forward and have any chance of existing, any chance of completing its mission, this is back in 2018. So before most of the world had kind of interactions or were aware of this company, this was being decided. Elon's saying, well, the only way forward is if Tesla, acquires OpenAI, only if Tesla funds it. He's saying his probability of OpenAI being relevant, right, succeeding against the likes of DeepMind and Google is 0, not 1%, 0.
Look, I think this whole thing is unbecoming of a builder, and I respect Elon as one of the great builders of our time. I know he knows what it's like to have haters attack him, and it makes me extra sad he's doing it. We want to put increasingly powerful tools in the hands of people for free and get them to use them. And I think that kind of open is really important to our mission. I think if you give people great tools and teach them to use them, or don't even teach them, they'll figure it out, and let them go build an incredible future for each other with that, that's a big deal. So if we can keep putting free or low cost, or free and low cost, powerful AI tools out in the world, I think it's a huge deal for how we fulfill the mission. Open source or not, yeah, I think we should open source some stuff and not other stuff. It does become this religious battle line where nuance is hard to have, but I think nuance is the right answer. I would definitely pick speaking of going back with an oracle, I'd pick a different name. He thought OpenAI was going to fail. He wanted total control to sort of turn it around. We wanted to keep going in the direction that now has become OpenAI. He also wanted Tesla to be able to build an AGI effort. At various times, he wanted to make OpenAI into a for-profit company that he could have control of or have it merge with Tesla. We didn't want to do that, and he decided to leave, which that's fine. It makes me sad. And I think it makes a lot of people sad. Like, there's a lot of people who've really looked up to him for a long time and said this. I said, in some interview or something that I missed the old Elon, and the number of messages I got being like, that exactly encapsulates how I feel. The amazing stuff about Elon is amazing, and I super respect him. I think we need him. All of us should be rooting for him and need him to step up as a leader through this next phase. There is definitely a place for open source models, particularly smaller models that people can run locally. I think there's huge demand for. I think there will be some open source models. There will be some closed source models. It won't be unlike other ecosystems in that way. I would heavily discourage any startup that was thinking about starting as a nonprofit and adding like a for-profit arm later. I'd heavily discourage them from doing that. I don't think we'll set a precedent here.
And it seems like both Sam and Rex are saying that they're kind of wishing that there was more peace, that Elon would be more of a peacemaker, more cooperative, everybody. Certainly for me, whatever the case is, whatever is happening between them, it would be better to see everyone cooperating and working together. Like this strife, I don't know if it's really good for anyone. I don't think it's good for the world. I don't think it's good for those companies. Certainly, it would be nice to see more cooperation from both sides. They also briefly talk about Sora and the video generation models as world simulators. Now, of course, there's been a lot of speculation in regards to Sora. How did they build Sora, the text-to-video AI engine?
I think all of these models understand something more about the world model than most of us give them credit for. And because they're also very clear things they just don't understand or don't get right, it's easy to look at the weaknesses, see through the veil and say, this is all fake. But it's not all fake. It's just some of it works and some of it doesn't work.
Okay, yeah, maybe you can tell me, in order to deal with occlusions, what does the world model need to?
Yeah, so what I would say is it's doing something to deal with occlusions really well. What I represent that it has a great underlying 3D model of the world, it's a little bit more of a stretch.
But can you get there through just these kinds of two-dimensional training data approaches?
It looks like this approach is going to go surprisingly far. I don't want to speculate too much about what limits it will surmount and which it won't,
But fundamentally, there's a lot of self-supervised learning, because what you mentioned in the technical report is internet-scale data. So it's a lot of data that's not human label. It's It's self-supervised in that way.
So OpenAI and Sam Altman are somewhat secretive about it, but I feel like they're giving some hints as to what it is. Here, Dr. Jim Fan saying that he won't be surprised if Sora is trained on lots of synthetic data using, for example, Unreal Engine 5. This would certainly explain how it potentially generates a lot of the appearance of, 3D environments, physics, occlusion. If you take a look at this clip right now of the two ships. So this is two pirate ships having sort of a battle inside of a cup of coffee. So notice if you look at the edges, you can see it appears as if we're inside a cup of coffee. And notice the liquid. It does not look like water. It does not really behave like water. The foam, the viscosity, and it also doesn't behave like an ocean. You can believably think of it as happening inside of a cup of coffee that you're kind of shaking around a little bit. And this is something that's notoriously difficult. The whole idea of fluid mechanics, right? In video games and 3D engines has been notoriously hard. It has its own departments of people working on it. And of course, we've seen incredible fluid mechanics in video games with oceans and rivers, etc., how beautiful they look. So, if you ask a lot of gamers, people that have seen kind of how this stuff has been generated, to look at the fluids here, at the coffee that's splashing about in there, and ask them, what does that look like? Does that look like real life? I mean, to me, it's very reminiscent of something that would be generated by, Unreal Engine or something along those lines. So here's Dr. Jim Fan. So he's a senior research scientist at NVIDIA. So he's saying, so for the prompt for this that you saw here is photorealistic close-up video of two pirate ships battling each other as they sail inside a cup of coffee. And so the 3D objects are consistently animated as they sail and avoid each other's paths. You can kind of see that. These appear to be fully 3D objects. So as they rotate, everything seems to rotate as we kind of imagine it would if we were looking at it from different sides. There does not appear to be too much weirdness because of the change of angle. It looks good. It looks realistic, like a 3D model. Fluid dynamics of the coffee, even the foam that forms around the ships fluid simulations is an entire subfield of computer graphics, which traditionally requires very complex algorithms and equations. And this is no joke. If you just type something like video game fluid dynamics, you will see a lot of people talking about, some pretty complex math and deep thought about how to create realistic looking fluids. There's an entire machine learning for fluid dynamics playlist. There's a video with 1.4 million views talking about simulating fluids. Like it's a big deal. Here's a video where some sort of a sludge-like thing, coffee or hot chocolate, actually, now that I read the title. Hot chocolate is flooding into the metro down the stairs. This might look kind of a silly thing to think about, to give so much thought to for people that maybe are unfamiliar with this, but this video, they're saying 38 hours for liquid simulation and then 40 hours for the rendering. So the reason I spend so much time on these fluids is because, again, so we type into Sora, photorealistic close-up of two pirate ships inside of a cup of coffee. It reproduces this. And it might be kind of, at first glance, easy to dismiss it. I was like, okay, that's cool, but not really fully grasp the underlying complexity of what's happening in this image. Because it's not like there's a million videos out there on the internet of miniature pirate ships swimming inside of a, rumbling cup of coffee, like some sort of a maelstrom inside of a cup of coffee. So it's not like they just feed a bunch of videos of that and it figures out how to do it. There's something deeper happening here. And a lot of people are really interested to find out what the heck are they doing to make this possible. As we covered in a previous video, if we take Dr. Jim Phan's kind of his idea down that path, you can take something like an Unreal Engine and create real 3D worlds with physics and then just extract tons and tons and tons of data, tons of video out of that, right? This photorealistic Unreal Engine video, and then just feed that into Sora, potentially creating very lifelike, very true, very realistic seeming imagery. So for example, this cup, now this is where a lot of people I think would look at it and say, oh, well, yeah, it's not really good because look, it's like the water just comes out of nowhere, the glass doesn't break. But I think that's missing the point because yes, it does get some things wrong, but it gets some very difficult things really, really right. Unfortunately, I'm having a hard time finding the paper that I'm looking for. I believe it was, so I might get some details wrong. So I believe it was Microsoft looking at using AI generated annotations. I wish I had that paper handy, but basically the idea is that something like GPT-4 can be used to watch videos, right? And sort of use the vision model to annotate them. So it sees something happening on screen and it writes down what it's seeing. And they actually have an example where it narrates how a video game is played. So it's saying, now the player goes here and does this. And the really amazing thing about that is that can provide what's called synthetic data. So it's data generated by AI that then can be used to train models, future AI models. So for example, with our idea of using the Unreal Engine, so we output tons of, for example, like, right, we don't know if that's the case or not, but let's say we output tons and tons of this video game footage, and then we have something like GPT-4 kind of annotate what's happening in it, the combination. So that's a pair of video and text, right? So for example, we take this video and the text that goes along with it is like a petri dish with bamboo forest growing within it that has tiny red pandas running around, right? And we get, a massive amounts of these pairs that then Sora is trained on. Could that be the secret behind Sora? Certainly, Sam Altman seems to be hinting that they figured out a way to deal with the occlusion, with some of the other things that are happening. It seems like he's saying that maybe referring to Sora as a 3D simulator is maybe pushing it a little bit. Might be a little bit much, but certainly whatever they're doing seems to be extraordinarily effective. Like that moment when the glass turns reflective, when we see the person looking, and you can see it's not a camera that she's using, it's her face. We're kind of perceiving the world out of her eyes. Like this, how is this not reality, right? It's very, very hard to tell the difference. Now, of course, so take a look at the parallax effect here. So notice this sort of layer, right? This sort of foreground versus the, kind of the mid-length background versus the background versus, the sky. Notice how this moves with this idea of a parallax. So this is kind of the effect of the foreground moving much, much faster. It's stunningly realistic. It's hard to see where this model fails at doing something in a very realistic fashion. Now we get to something like this, and now you can tell, okay, what is even happening here? The hands are horizontal wrong. There's this ghost hand. The model might be a little bit confused about how headphones work, right? Because this one is like connected to a bracelet. This one goes somewhere in her jacket to one ear, right? So you can, if you stop and you look at certain details, you can see this is AI generated. But then you click play and it's really, really hard to spot why this is not real footage. Also, this is a subdomain on OpenAI.com, something that they're referring to as Feather. You can't log in. You need a Feather account, whatever that is. So there's a lot of speculation about what that is. Based on the trademarks that they've done, this seems like the thing. And as I'm talking about it, I just realized I actually have not heard anything about the changing of the logo. So this logo is a feather, and how it's positioned kind of makes it obvious that, it's like a scribe's feather, basically like a pen, an instrument that was used to, write things down, to scribe, to write things down back in the days. Maybe I was kind of being a little bit slow this time, but actually, like, as I see this now, it clicks into place. I get what this thing is. Here's the trademark that they filed for OpenAI Feather, and it's data labeling and annotation services, namely data processing and systemization services using automated labeling and annotation of images, audio, video, text, and other forms of electronic data. This is the first time that I've noticed that it actually has this feather, and to me, this obviously connects everything. So I think it might be kind of safe to say that what this is using AI, so using a model like GPT-4 Vision to annotate large amounts of data automatically with AI, whether that's video or images or whatever, which is, obviously could be extremely beneficial in a lot of scenarios. So for example, if at the hospital, going over all the footage and having this thing annotate what's happening, the nurse gave patient a shot at 2:32 p.m., right? And kind of just automatically processing large amounts of data would obviously be extremely, extremely useful. And there's a million other applications as well. But really, another important application is for generating synthetic data. We can take any amount of videos now, have this annotated, and now it becomes training data for the next generation of models. So it does seem like Sam Altman is perhaps hinting at that a little bit. Like, he's not really saying anything specific, but that is obviously the conversation, what we're talking about. They also talk about the Q star, the leaks, the rumors, the legend. So we still are not 100% sure what it is. Sam Altman says we're not ready to talk about it yet, which again kind of confirms that indeed it is a thing. It's a something. It wasn't just a figment of people's imagination, but some of the speculation behind what it could be, something like this. So it's some sort of a tree of thoughts, reasoning, process reward models, and supercharging synthetic data. So where, for example, Google DeepMind had a lot of success is this idea of, for example, self-play. So having two AIs play chess together, play against each other. So like AlphaGo, a lot of the success with AlphaGo was self-play and look-ahead planning. So it would play itself and kind of search through a tree of possibilities that could happen to kind of think through what steps to take. Right. And there's a lot of ideas that kind of go with that. Like, how do we reward models for making the right decisions? Do we reward the outcome, like it winning a game, or do we reward it making good moves, etc.?
This does make me think of the lore behind Q-Star. What's this mysterious Q-Star project? Is it also in the same nuclear facility?
There is no nuclear facility.
That's what a person with a nuclear facility always says.
I would love to have a secret nuclear facility. There isn't one.
All right.
Maybe someday.
Someday? All right. One can dream.
OpenAI is not a good company at keeping secrets. It would be nice. We're been plagued by a lot of leaks, and it would be nice if we were able to have something like that.
Can you speak to what Q-Star is?
We are not ready to talk about that.
See, but an answer like that means there's something to talk about. It's very mysterious, Sam.
We work on all kinds of research. We have said for a while that we think better reasoning in these systems is an important direction that we'd like to pursue. We haven't cracked the code yet.
So What could Q star be? Well, again, we don't know, but a lot of people are thinking that it has to do with a new approach to getting these models to reason really well, potentially taking the successes that happen at Google DeepMind, everything that they've sort of been able to achieve with their algorithms and neural nets and kind of like the OpenAI technology. Maybe it's some sort of a combination of those two things, but unfortunately, we're not going to find that out quite yet because Sam is saying, well, it's not time to talk about that.
I tend to believe that humans like to watch other humans or other human.
Humans really care about other humans a lot.
Yeah. If there's a cooler thing that's better than a human, humans care about that for like 2 days and then they go back to humans.
That seems very deeply wired.
It's the whole chess thing.
Yeah.
But no, let's everybody keep playing chess. And let's ignore the elephant in the room that humans are really bad at chess relative to AI systems.
We still run races and cars are much faster. I mean, there's like a lot of examples.
They also talk about kind of like this idea that humans want to watch other humans. We want to interact with other humans even in arenas where AI completely dominates. So for example, in chess, we already have a superhuman artificial intelligence in that narrow task, right? So in chess, there's an AI that is superhuman. It will beat any chess player, right? So in 1997, chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov resigns after, playing against the Deep Blue, a chess playing computer from IBM, saying he lost his fighting spirit. So this idea that this is where people realize that, okay, computers are going to be much better at certain things. As early as 1997, we knew that the best players in the world were getting beaten by AI. I do even believe, I don't know if it was Kasparov or somebody else saying that basically chess is now over effectively, right? So is chess over? Well, not quite. The chess boom continues, right? So this is number of hours of chess watched on streaming platform Twitch. So people are still playing chess a lot. Here's the change in chess.com site traffic, right? So from, 2015 to 2022. I mean, it's huge, massive spike. And you can also say that the game is evolving over time due to AI. Somewhere along the line, more and more AI strategies start to get adapted. People that are coming back to playing chess after decades of not playing are pointing out that the game is very different now. But even though we have a superhuman AI that is able to defeat any human player, we are still very interested in chess, specifically playing chess with other humans. And that's kind of what Lex and Sam were talking about, that no matter how good AI gets at certain tasks, our interest in humans is hardwired. We want to see other humans do things. That's what we're interested in. They also talk about the idea of kind of brainstorming with AI. And for those of you that haven't tried it, if you have the ChatGPT subscription, I do urge you to try this because it's surprisingly good. So click on the headphones icon in there and it'll go into this kind of talk back and forth mode. The one trick that really helps me is if you hold down this button, just put your thumb on it and just keep it there, kind of like a walkie-talkie. So as long as your thumb is on it, you just keep talking. You can talk at length. And then when you let go, this thing responds. Otherwise, it kind of like, you have a pause in your speech, you'll start responding and it'll go off on a tangent. But if you want to kind of control how long you talk for, just hold the button down. And next time you're trying to think through something, have some sort of a brainstorming sessions, if you're trying to name something or come up with some ideas or whatever, try this. Start by kind of just describing what you want to brainstorm about, just like you would to a human. Let go, have it kind of like think about it, let it run, let it think about it and get some words out there. And then start this back and forth process of refining your ideas. Some people are even saying that they sometimes go on a walk, put headphones in and use this to kind of just talk back and forth as they're walking. And I think that's what kind of Sam Altman what he was referring to, is that kind of like brainstorming process. It is surprisingly good. Like, it's easy to dismiss because it's kind of simple, but I have found this is one kind of like really underrated aspect of ChatGPT. The back and forth talking with it process when you need to brainstorm or just get some ideas out on paper, where you just need to get the creative process going. So you're not necessarily relying on it to just give you all the ideas. It's just maybe you have 2 or 3 ideas, you throw it out there and you're like, give me 10 more like that. and it just does. Then you respond with, okay, that's a good start, but let's only take ideas that we could probably accomplish within the next 30 days. So do that. And then it refines those ideas. So it's just quickly just throwing more data back at you for your own brain to sort of process and come up with ideas. And it's very, very good.
I kind of hate ads just as like an aesthetic choice. I think ads needed to happen on the internet for a bunch of reasons to get it going, but it's a more mature industry.
They also briefly talk about ads. It's funny hearing Sam Altman talk about how much he hates ads because more and more recently, I am getting kind of concerned about ads and various ways that online companies start promoting stuff. I can't stop laughing with this one, right? So there's a lady that's sitting in a little cubicle, right? She accidentally clicks on an ad and it just starts auto playing super loud, problems with incontinence, as her coworkers are like, what? Which, I mean, the whole autoplay video sales letters or whatever, they're probably not as bad nowadays because you have more controls. But yeah, not that long ago, you didn't have as much control. So you could have something that just start blaring, start autoplaying without you realizing it. But ads are getting super intrusive. Their promotional content is now appearing in cars on the displays. We went from analog to those digital iPad-like things in cars. And now that is being used to kind of promote, not ads necessarily, but some they're pitching you stuff. They're affiliate deals for satellite radio or whatever. I have an app that opens up my garage on my phone. And the other day I got hit with a pop-up, a promotional message that I had to, click on the X. And then it was so number one, pop-up. Number two, is hard to close. And when you click on the X, it also goes, oh, are you sure? Right. And so I'm sitting I can't get into my house until I navigate through this ad/promotional message because they want me to sign up for something. And there doesn't seem to be an end to it, right? Because, there's no laws in how annoying your ads could be. So I've been building stuff online since 2011. It's just every year, it just gets pushed more and more. Back in the days, the things that you would associate with just low quality, scummy websites, for example, if you've ever had that where you click back on your browser, but instead of going back to the page that you were on before, it injects other pages into your history, so to speak, right? So it actually takes you back to a different page. Stuff like that would only exist on the really scammy sites on the internet. Now it's on major news networks. And there doesn't seem to be a way where it'll stop. At some point, you might have to watch a 60-second ad just to get into your house, open your garage, right? So as these things become just more prevalent, that's kind of a scary situation to be in. So I feel relieved that Sam Altman, I'm so happy that his hate for ads or, certain types of ads, certainly, that he's saying that, hey, we needed ads to kind of spin up the internet, but there's another future evolution where maybe, hopefully, there's a better way where we don't have to deal with it.
On the programming front, looking out into the future, how much programming do you think humans will be doing 5-10 years from now?
I mean, a lot, but I think it'll be in a very different shape. Maybe some people program entirely in natural language.
Entirely natural language.
I mean, no one programs writing bytecode. Some people. No one programs the punch cards anymore.
So Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA. Oh, by the way, almost forgot. So on March 19th, so that whole NVIDIA conference is happening in San Jose. So Dr. Jim Fan is going to be talking about his new thing. So they launched a Gear Lab. We don't have too many details yet, but I would bet money that this is going to be interesting. This is going to make some waves. I'm sure of it. So Jensen Huang, CEO, founder of NVIDIA, he was saying how for the longest time, a lot of people would tell you that teach your kids to code, teach them to use computers, right? Make sure they're tech savvy. Specifically, he was talking about coding, right? Teach them to program. And just recently he gave a talk where he's almost saying the exact opposite. He's saying that maybe it's his job and NVIDIA and everybody else's job to create computers and programs that don't require coding, where you just have your domain-specific knowledge and you focus on that. You focus on your own skills and the tech side of it. You won't need to code. And seemingly Sam Altman is kind of saying something along those same lines, that all programming will be done in natural language, which I've been meaning to do a video on that because I want to showcase a pattern that I'm seeing in a lot of the new research papers from NVIDIA and Microsoft and a lot of these big companies that are dropping, because you're almost seeing a new type of programming language emerge. And I'll try to do that very soon, but you won't call it coding, as in it's not a programming language. You also wouldn't call it just talking out loud. It's not like normal speech that we use to communicate with one another. It is natural language, but it's a little bit more formulaic. I'll do a full deep dive in a different video, but I think this will give you a glimpse into where stuff is going. But anyway, so Jensen Huang is saying that programming will not be necessary in the future. Do you agree with that or no? Maybe he just has a chip on his shoulder. Get it? Chip on the shoulder? No? Okay.
Like, we're going to want an amount of compute that's just hard to reason about right now.
How do you solve the energy puzzle? Nuclear
That's what I believe.
fusion?
That's what I believe.
Nuclear fusion?
Yeah.
Who's going to solve that?
I think Helion's doing the best work, but I'm happy there's like a race for fusion right now.
Given Sora's ability to generate simulated worlds, let me ask you a pothead question. Does this increase your belief, if you ever had one, that we live in a simulation? Maybe a simulated world generated by an AI system?
Yes, somewhat.
And finally, does Sam Altman think that we live in a simulation? This is something that's been talked about more and more because, 5, 10, 20 years ago, it was kind of like this idle speculation. People wondered, oh, well, maybe someone created a simulation and we're living in it. And then you kind of wonder, well, why would they do that? But now with a lot of the progress, we're realizing that simulations are extremely valuable because they generate data. They allow us to, have a world that takes shape, that develops certain characteristics. And that's very, very valuable for us. A lot of the robotics data is generated this way, with the whole Unreal, using something like the Unreal Engine to generate graphics. I mean, you can see how having, imagine something like Grand Theft Auto 5 with the whole city running around and doing stuff and autonomously like pursuing certain goals, and then just being able to take all those little moments and capture everything that they're doing, and then taking that footage out to, let's say, train one of these video generators. Like, that's useful. That's a useful use of that simulation. Having autonomous beings running around them doing either like cool action stuff or just even everyday stuff, that's useful. That's useful for research. That's useful for product development. So it's becoming more and more apparent that we will for sure have simulations in the future. We will build simulations with various autonomous beings in there, right, that have neural nets. Now, the question will become, are they conscious? Are they sentient? But the point is that will be very valuable to us. And that's what a lot of these companies are kind of working towards. So the question is, with that in mind, like, is it possible that we are doing that for somebody else kind of in the base reality above us? So what does Sam Altman think? Well, now, again, I encourage everybody to listen to the whole video because I'm obviously just taking clips. I don't want to make Lex Fridman mad at me and do a copyright strike on this content because I took too much of his content. So I'm just pulling clips out. I'm not trying to take anything out of context. I don't think it is out of context, but certainly listening to the whole interview will give you a much better understanding of what Sam Altman is saying. So please don't just rely on the little clips that I play here to kind of get a full accurate perspective of what he's talking about. And finally, the question is, do we believe that we might lose control of AGI? Could it go rogue? Could it do bad things? Now, specifically, we're not talking about somebody like a human abusing it for their own means or a human being maybe making a mistake and deploying it somehow. So it's not, user error. We're not talking about user error. We're talking about this idea of the AGI developing its own goals that are incompatible with, the human race surviving and whatnot. Is that a concern? Here's Sam Altman's take. Anyway, so that's kind of like the main points that I wanted to highlight. Again, I encourage everybody to listen to the interview. The other big takeaway for me wasn't, and this is subjective, so I'm sure some of you won't agree, but it is interesting to know kind of what kind of people are running the show. We all have our ideas. We all have our biases. And, for me, I'll be honest, I tend to be kind of biased in favor of Sam Altman. I think that he strikes me as a sincere person. He strikes me as a conscientious person. Yeah, he makes big moves. He plays the game. He's relentless. He's, aggressive in some ways in how he makes moves, right? He's not a pushover. But behind all of that, I feel like he does have this mission that he's pursuing, and that he is certainly, I can think of people that it would be a lot worse to run a company of this importance. But what do you think? Does your opinion of Sam Altman change after seeing some of these clips, or even better, after seeing the entire interview? Do you think he's just out for power and money and glory and fame? Or do you think this is somebody that is on this really difficult, really challenging, really exhausting journey of trying to responsibly bring this powerful new technology into the world? What's your take? I'd be curious to know. And as a thank you for watching this video, here's a video of a few puppies playing in snow. I hope you enjoy. My name is Wes Roth. Thank you for watching.